What's up, guys? Welcome to another installment of Ask a Christian Strength Coach featuring my beautiful wife, Alisha. Some call her Cece. She's from the South, but she also brings a really good female perspective. So today we have 5 questions submitted by you guys. Again, make sure to comment your questions below. We receive these questions on YouTube, Instagram at FitCoupleU, and on Facebook, Timothy Glenn Cruz, my government name, and what are you at? Alicia Lawrence Cruz. Yes.
Yeah.
So find us if you haven't found us, follow us, give us a follow. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe on this page because YouTube and algorithm and the words I'm supposed to say. And with the further ado, if I can talk today, hit me.
Okay. So these are 5 questions that people tend to ask, especially with the new year. So the first one is, I just started using MOTS-c because I keep seeing it everywhere for fat loss and energy. I'm lifting 4 to 5 days a week now and trying to eat better, but I don't really feel much different yet. Am I using MOTS-c wrong, or is it something you even notice early on?
So I have a lot to say about MOTS-c, but I'm going to start. There's a little nugget in that question that lets me know that the foundation within your program or your plan is not solid. When I hear the words, I'm trying to eat better, by default, you're not eating that. You're not on a plan, right? So your first and foremost responsibility is to follow a nutrition plan, a solid nutrition plan, a solid training program. I don't care what substance you use, whether it's MOTS-c, whether it's testosterone, whether it's growth hormone, whether it's any of these peptides that you find, even retatrutide, none of them are going to do a damn thing if you aren't on a nutrition plan, if you aren't on a concerted foundation. Yeah. And also within that question, you didn't really give me what your goal was. I'm assuming, was it for fat loss?
There, it did say fat loss.
Okay.
Well, that they've heard that they've seen it everywhere for fat loss and energy.
So I think it's important to understand what our end goal for our program is, right? So for instance, right now I am in I would guess I'm still trying to gain. I'm still trying to get jacked. I just came out of a contest prep a few months ago. So I'm still trying to grow. So all of these tools, MOTS-c being one of them, see them as just tools in your tool belt. They are not a panacea. They don't solve every problem that you have. They might aid in one specific thing. Okay, so with that being said, I feel like that sets the foundations. Once you have a good foundation of training, once you have a good foundation of nutrition, and your rest is on point, meaning you're getting plenty of sleep at night, minimum of 7 to 8 hours, then we can have a conversation around MOTS-c. MOTS-c is very good for, I would say, it's touted as like a mitochondrial optimizer, if you will. Think of it as kind of like a way to rev up the output that happens at a cellular level, meaning the more ATP we can produce, the more energy we can burn, therefore the more fat loss we can incur, providing that we're not consuming more calories. What I noticed from it, and I started really conservatively, I started about a 0.5 milligram fasted in the morning pre-cardio. And there's a pretty decent amount of energy from just a 0.5 milligram daily. But I didn't really notice a hell of a lot in terms of fat loss. I would say all the fat loss that you're going to experience from MOTS-c is going to come secondhand from the energy that you have, so you can effectively work harder and burn more fuel while you're training, while you're doing cardio. And yes, it does take away a little bit of the drag that you get deep into like a diet when you start to feel a little bit like a zombie. So I don't think MOTS-c is really a game changer, but I mean, it's like a little icing on the cake. I have seen people, I personally never went above 1 milligram at any one time, but just as a massive like public service announcement, there's been plenty of cases of people going into anaphylactic shock with MOTS-c when they take their doses too high. A lot of the research, and mind you, this is completely rodent models, right? There are some human models within this research, but the vast majority of these studies have been done on rats. So they would go, if you extrapolate the doses, up to anywhere from like 5 to 10, even 20 milligrams a day. And so when people, go cowboy on it and they start using 5 milligrams at a time, 10 milligrams at a time, sure, they're going to see a massive spike in energy. But there also is that risk. A certain percentage of people get anaphylactic shock. And as being someone who's had anaphylaxis several times in my life from bananas and cherries, it's a deadly thing. So you need to have an EpiPen ready to go. And I don't care what kind of a fat loss benefits it has. It's not worth anaphylaxis. So my advice is get the foundation first. And then if you choose to start MOTS-c, which it sounds like you already have, start really low, like 0.5 per day, and use just what you need to get the job done. There's no need to raise the dose unless there is an equal upside to raising the dose.
Okay. We had a guest join us.
She likes
there's somebody moving, so she's not really happy about this. So the next question we got was, I just started carnivore for the new year. Right now, it's mostly ribeyes, ground beef, eggs, and butter. It's not been a week or two, but my workouts already feel flat and I don't get much of a pump. Is that normal when starting carnivore, or am I setting myself up wrong?
So right off the bat, that's not carnivore. It's mostly carnivore, but it's really keto. That's really what we're talking about here. The addition of things that are not meat automatically makes it not carnivore, hence the name carnivore. But I have a lot to say about this. Mostly around, first I would need some like specific context of where you are body fat wise. If you have plenty of body fat on your body, if someone came to me and like, hey, they got like 20% body fat or more, male or female, and they were like, hey, it's been a week or two since I started carnivore, I feel flat, I feel blah, like my energy is not very good, my workouts are weak, are not stellar, I would think it's psychological, because in that amount of time, you're really not going to you're not going to get depleted with glycogen, like not that fast.
Okay.
But the symptoms that you're feeling are probably real. And they're probably really close to what people feel when they go through what's called the keto flu. And the keto flu is just a fancy way of saying your brain runs on glucose. And when you take away glucose for a period of time, there's a lag between when your brain runs on glucose to when it develops the enzymes required to break down enough fatty acids to turn them into ketones. That's where ketosis comes from. So your brain can run on ketones. In that lag period of time, and it's different for everybody, you get what's called the keto flu, or you can get what's called the keto flu. And in that time, you kind of feel like crap. But once you snap into ketosis, it'll be like someone turned the light switch off in your brain. So no, it's not because of the diet. It's because of the fuel source that your brain's running on, which makes you feel like crap. Now, going through that, that's like the broad answer. You have to ask yourself, why are you on a carnivore diet in the first place? If the main goal is to lose body fat, the carnivore diet is not actually going to be your most optimal way, mostly because it's unsustainable. And if we have a significant amount of body fat to lose, the number one variable we want to consider is sustainability, because it takes time. Like even for me, I mean, how long was I in contest prep to go from 12% body fat to 4% body fat?
32 weeks.
A long time, right? So like if I was like, hey, you can only eat meat for 32 weeks. I mean, I'm pretty hardcore, I'm pretty stubborn, but I wouldn't have been able to do it. I would have not given my best. So having an approach that's a little bit more balanced in nature, understanding that carbohydrates are not the enemy, that they're actually your number one fuel source for training, which is actually going to be the biggest stimulus that you have for tissue retention, muscle tissue retention during a diet phase, which is what leads you to that lean, muscular looking physique, not just weight loss, is a huge unlock. Now, a flip side of that is, when would you use carnivore? I see carnivore as like the ultimate like reset diet or elimination diet. So if you have got gut issues, if you've got, I mean, I've got Crohn's, she's got UC, we've got a whole gambit of hot autoimmune disorders in this family. It's a great way to flush out any type of, I guess, inflammation that's been accruing in your system. And it is a really good reset. So use the tool for the job. Carnivore is a great tool for that. It's not necessarily a great tool for fat loss.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. It's just like, it's a tool in the toolbox. So there are times that it is a good idea, but if it's just, hey, I saw so-and-so do it, or some influencer was doing it. So
if it's Paul Saladino, don't listen to him. He's a crock.
So that's what I'm choosing to do. It's just, looking deeper into it. And the other thing that I would add to that is just, you need all three of your macronutrients, your carbs, your fats, and your protein. So any diet that cuts all or most of those out is not going to be sustainable long-term.
Yeah. 1000%.
Okay. The next one is, I just started intermittent fasting with a 16-8 window because everyone says it's good for fat loss. I also just got back into lifting and usually train in the morning before work. Is training fasted when you're just starting back a mistake?
So I find it kind of ironic that these two questions came together, because it seems like the intermittent fasting crowd and the carnivore crowd kind of like they're the same crowd. So right off the bat, I just want to break down the myth that there's no magic to intermittent fasting. In dieting, we have one objective, and that is to create a calorie deficit.
Mm-hmm.
And there's effectively 3 different ways that we can create a calorie deficit. One is going to be time restricted dieting, right? So that is what intermittent fasting is. You can only eat for so many hours by default, unless you're meat. It will artificially create a deficit because you can't out eat the calories that you need. So you put yourself in a deficit just because you're taking away 16 hours a day that you can consume food.
Right. Kitchen's closed.
Kitchen's closed, right? And it's also easy because a lot of times the diet fatigue that comes along mentally it's a fatigue of choice. And when we see food as binary, meaning yes or no, it's much easier than, operate with caution and make good choices. So saying no food until 4 p.m., that's a pretty easy choice. It's a no. It doesn't matter if it's chocolate or broccoli. It's black and white. Yeah. So time restricted eating is another one, one way. The other one is caloric restriction. So we would call that portion control, which would be your traditional diet, right? You're eating 4 or 5 meals a day, sometimes 6, but you're making sure that you're accounting for the calories, the protein, the carbs, and fat to create the deficit. So you have a little bit more of a mathematical approach to it. And that's what most bodybuilders do, is even though if we don't know we're doing it, we do that. Our coach will tell you eat this much, and they're the ones that adjust the portions to make sure that you're in a deficit. So that's another way. The other way is food restriction, meaning we're cutting out carbs, we're cutting out fat. I've never seen one that cuts out completely out protein, but you have the carnivore diet, or the keto diet, which is a complete avoidance of carbohydrates. And then if you guys remember all the way back in the early 2000s, late 90s, there was the whole low fat craze. And so they would cut out all the fat. And by doing that, you take away a lot of calories.
But the caveat I'll throw in there that I realized, I was a kid at that time, but now that I'm older, what they did was they substituted sugar.
Yeah.
They didn't tell you that at the time, but it still tasted okay because they just added a ton of sugar even when they took that out.
Yeah, none of them are the optimal approach. The optimal approach is the one that you can follow long term. And the second point of this is what the guy asked, which is, is this okay to do? I workout fasted, right? Or how does it affect your training? I think is a better way to say that. And my answer to that would be, first off, you're training first thing in the morning. You probably had dinner the night before, because most of the time people, they go on this 16-8 or 18-6, like intermittent fasting schedule. Their meals tend to be in the afternoon because that's when people generally have a bigger appetite. So if you're having plenty of food before you go to bed, plenty of carbohydrates specifically, then yeah, you're probably going to feel okay when you train. And the main thing is like, how's your performance? Do you feel good when you go to the gym? Are you at least maintaining strength, if not getting stronger? And are you able to make it through your workouts without hitting that wall? And so, piece of advice, if you are going to train early in the morning fasted, which I have plenty of clients, I'm sure you do too, that train first thing in the morning, is, you might not have enough time to get a meal in and let it digest and go work out if you're getting up at 4 and you have to be at the gym by 5. Right. So what I tell those clients is actually the first thing you want to do is you make sure you want to get a liter of water in with some good electrolytes. So like ID Life has this hydration product that is like kind of like the perfect blend of, magnesium, potassium, sodium, calcium, like all of our electrolytes. Make sure we're getting at least a liter of water in, make sure we're getting plenty of electrolytes in, because that's actually what's going to fuel like the performance side of it more acutely than the food. And then while you're training, so that way you can prevent muscle catabolism, muscle breakdown, you want to make sure you have a good intra-workout drink. And that intra-workout drink can look very simple. Water, obviously, another like liter and a half water. Some essential amino acids, which is basically pre-digested protein. And then I like using something that's like a quick digesting carbohydrate, like cyclic dextrin, or if you're broke, you want to use Gatorade powder, that's fine too. Just make sure you have something easy to digest while you're in there. You can also, sub in some creatine, some glutamine, just things to help with cellular hydration and performance. If you're doing that, you'll probably be okay. I can promise you're going to be starving by the end of the day if you do it. But if that's your only option, hey, work out fast.
A lot of time parenting like that is the option. So just like you said, I would just really pay attention to how you feel if you find yourself in this boat, or even if you don't necessarily intermittent fast, but you're like, hey, I work out in the morning. Should I eat breakfast or a meal before?
I think that's a much more common thing, especially with people that work full time. And then you just have to ask yourself, why am I intermittent fasting? Is it to lose fat? Cool. There's other ways we can do that too. And so give it a trial. And my rule is if you're acting like an asshole because you're hungry, maybe it's not for you.
It might not be good for you.
It might not be good for you. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and one other thing that I would point out with that too is everybody's body handles that a little bit differently, right? Like I know some people that it works great for. for me personally, it's a terrible idea. And
Same.
it was explained once I did my metabolic DNA testing because it like told me in black and white. But I'm one of those that I can't catch up. I overeat when I do eat. I can't get full later. And it just sabotages the whole rest of my day. So I'm better off starting with breakfast in the morning and just eating frequent, smaller meals. I'm not saying everybody's in camp 1 or camp 2, but just everybody know that people are different. So some people can function well on that. But if you're on the other side of it, intermittent fasting is actually going to be one of the worst things that you can do.
Yeah, I've seen people that I'm in the camp with you. I actually become more food focused and I have a bigger appetite, and I could totally out eat my calories if I was to intermittent fast. And I've done it before. You guys,
and talk about hangry.
It's
like,
not just
hangry.
It's not just a me thinking about it. Like I gave it a full trial. But other people, like I see this a lot with like nurses and like firefighters and like shift workers, like people like policemen, like people that can't really eat at irregular intervals throughout the day. It's sometimes more stressful if they have to bring food to work because they might not get to eat anyway. So I'm just like, hey, just like chill, just drink your fluids and get your meals in when you're done. And they seem to love that and work really well on it.
Yep. Okay. So are we to the number 4? I'm just getting back into lifting and decided to start at around 1,800 calories to lose fat faster. I'm about 210 pounds. Is staying this low a mistake, or is it smart to be aggressive early?
So there's a lot missing. A lot of factors missing from that. Good question. If I could ballpark it, you are probably starting significantly too low. And here's just like a regular rule of thumb. And I think I said this a couple episodes ago. When you're setting up your fat loss diet as a man, so we can do just simple math, and you can type this in on Google or ChatGPT to figure out your maintenance calories. But as a shorthand way of it, take your body weight, multiply it by 15. That's going to give you a good place to start, which is isocaloric, meaning you're not going to gain, you're not going to lose. The other way you can go about this is just simply track your calories for 3 days and take the average. And if you're not losing weight or gaining weight, you know that the average is about where your maintenance calories are. And then you would simply just reduce that by 10%. And that gives you a really good range to start from. I'm not bringing up people that are metabolically damaged and they need to reverse diet and so on and so forth. But let's just pretend that you have plenty of caloric health or metabolic health. You would simply just make a 10% reduction and then go for it. But a man that's 210 pounds, providing you're not like morbidly obese, like 30% body fat or more, generally speaking, like I would probably start that guy around 2,700 calories and then work down from there. I'm always a fan of, I guess it's called higher energy flux is the scientific term. More energy in, more energy out, right? So feed the body to become a machine and then train really hard. So you're eating more calories, but you're also putting out more calories. That tends to have a better response because you can only cut so many calories before you run into zero, right? So if we're starting at 27, but we're getting some baller ass workouts and we're really training hard, we're actually probably causing some like hypertrophy at that range, but we're losing body fat at the same time. And we need to come down to 2,500 calories. We have a lot more wiggle room before we have to like, diet's done. We got to reverse back up. Yeah. So just something to think about.
Well, and that's something that we see a lot is people, have this like magic number in their head that they need to hit. And then they're just constantly in a diet and a deficit and they never feel comfortable, confident building that back up. Yeah. And that's what kind of like bottoms out your metabolism. But I felt like there was something else I was there's just so many nuance factors too that, even like if we have somebody reach out, it's okay, before you start this, what's your activity level? Are you sedimentary? Are you, pretty active? And then when you are active, what's the intensity of your workout? So there's just a lot that goes into it, but the multipliers that you gave them at
it's a super simple way to start.
At the beginning is like,
and if you don't want to do math, just simply track for 3 days and then find out what your average is. And you'll actually know really quickly if you're metabolically damaged. Like let's say you are that 210 pound man and you track your calories and you're honest with yourself, right? Like track the food that you wouldn't tell your coach about.
All your condiments,
and let's say all your drinks. Yeah. Let's say you're eating 1,400 calories a day and you're not losing your weight. Like you're not in a healthy place to do a fat loss phase. You need to spend a good time of like 2 to 3 months building your metabolic rate up. So that way you actually have calories to pull from before you enter your first fat loss phase. Because I can promise you that's a real frustrating event to be like, man, I'm only eating like 1,200 calories and I'm dying over here and I'm still fat. Like what's going on?
Yeah.
And your wife's like, eat a burger, dude. Like you're pissing me off.
Yep. Okay. Last question today is, I just got back into the gym and started doing high volume workouts with supersets and drop sets because that's what I see online. I'm already really sore and beat up. Is that how you're supposed to train when you're just starting back?
Short answer, no, not at all. But let me give you a good analogy to make this kind of sit home. So you can't see my arms here, but I'm really freaking Irish, right? So my skin tone is white slash pink.
Light.
It's pinkish hue, right? Like, so you can tell I don't spend a ton of time out in the sun because melanoma is nobody's friend. But if I do go to start tanning in a tanning bed, this approach is the equivalent of me going into the highest pressure bed at the max time my first time. How do you think that's going to go for me? I'm most likely going to burn to a crisp, peel, maybe develop cancer, and then I'm going to be back to white, right? So the appropriate way is to go in for 5 minutes first in the lowest pressure bed, get the response, and then once that response kind of plateaus, then go to 7 minutes and then 9 minutes. And then you just keep slowly ticking your way up because your body, and this is a biological principle. It's called the SRA curve. It's a fancy way of saying stimulus, response, or stimulus, recovery, adaptation, right? So the stimulus is the training. All that is somebody pushing a button to turn that light on. So think about like an elevator. If you're at the elevator, you push the button, the elevator comes down to you. But if you push a button 10 times or 100 times, you push it really hard, it doesn't make the elevator come to you any faster. It's just simply an on and off switch. So we want to take the lazy man approach here and do the bare minimum that's required to elicit the response. Same with what we're talking about with dieting just a little bit ago, is at a certain point, that's not going to be enough. We're going to have to raise the stimulus. So if we start with all these drop sets and supersets and giant sets, and we keep following, I'm trying to think of like a terrible influencer here. There's so many, but anything you see on TikTok from, people that have been doing this for a really long time, and they're honestly probably not too in tune with programming anyway. You're most likely gonna, just like with the tanning analogy, burn to a crisp, peel, go back to square one, and then you're just it's really hard to sustain that, right? Any progress, so I would recommend starting with, like let's say you're doing a traditional bro split, because if you're following influencers, you're probably doing a bro split. Let's say you're doing chest on Mondays because that's what the world does. You don't need 20 sets of chest when you start. You might need 5 or 6. Pick 2 to 3 exercises, hit them suckers hard for 2 to 3 sets each. Maybe leave a rep or 2 in the tank. Don't take them all the way to failure. And then the next week, just go a little bit harder on those same amount of sets. And then once you can eke out all the progress you can from that, then add another set. And this might take 12, 16, 24 weeks to work your way up to doing 10 to 12 sets for that body part. So that's the way to think about it, is start low, work your way up slowly, so that way your body can respond and then adapt to the stimulus that you give it. And the way that you can tell is, are you able to at least match, if not progress, the next time you do that same movement? So if you're doing, again, chest on Monday, you're doing bench press and you can hit 185 for like 6 reps, and the next week you can do 7, you've adapted.
Yeah.
But if you aren't, then you're doing too much, or there's other variables like nutrition and rest and things like that might be out of whack. Guarantee if you're doing all this shit, you're not going to be adapting.
I looked back at the question because I was like, wait a minute, was that like a very first time? But they did say they were getting back into it. But just kind of if you are getting into the gym for the first time ever, you're going to have what they call newbie gains anyway. So you don't need to worry about all the nuance of supersets and all of this craziness. You're going to make gains just because your body's like, oh, this is awesome. So that's
save those cards for later.
Yeah. You don't need to do all of that, straight out of the gate. And I will say, just because I've had some health issues in the last month or 2. So for the first time in my life, I've been off of.
You're actually kind of in this boat.
Actual gym. Yes, I really am. Like gym workouts and doing what I can do for over a month and a half. And so right before Christmas, I tried to go back to that. And I even cut the weight that I normally use in half and did less reps than I normally did. And you can ask Tim, I was crippled for both my upper body and my lower body. And then the next week was Christmas. And we had a long drive. So long story short, I just went to rehab exercises until we went on the trip, because I knew I didn't need to be crippled with us both needing to drive to Montana. And then this week is my start week back with that. And sometimes it is just range of motion, going to the gym. Sometimes it's just showing up and just going through your exercises and see what your body can do. And if you're not sore, then, do a little bit more each time, but you
No,
don't
I
need to
love
do the
that.
craziness.
I love that. And that's actually, I was going to ask you this later, but I think it's a good segue into what the major mistakes are with New Year's resolutions and like people starting on any new plan. Because let's be honest, you guys are probably everybody's starting some kind of resolution at this point.
Mm-hmm.
The reason that the gyms are full, January, well, probably 5th,
Mm-hmm.
next Monday, they'll be full and they're empty by the end of the month is because people, they don't think about sustainability.
Yeah.
They take on too many things at one time. So like if you are not working out and not following a diet plan, and you try to go in and do what I do, which is like full meal plan, bodybuilder workouts, living, eating, and breathing this stuff, that's a huge shift, which is most likely not sustainable. Mm-hmm. So like Alisha was saying, if you have a training program, your actual goal is just to show up and do the damn thing. If you aren't following a nutrition plan, it might just be to not eat junk food and try to eat protein with every meal that you have, right? Just taking small steps. I've had people that have literally lost like 80 to 100 pounds and they never once followed a formal meal plan. It was just like, hey, let's remove this piece of garbage from your diet plan. Let's try including a little bit of a healthy breakfast instead of your Starbucks and McDonald's. And then maybe we're going to go on a walk in the evening, like just adding these lifestyle habits one at a time, week over week. You'd be surprised. It's kind of like that analogy with a frog in boiling water, right? Like you drop a frog in boiling water, it's going to bail, right? But if you drop a frog in room temperature water and you just crank the degrees up one at a time, you can effectively boil it to death without it knowing what's going on. I don't think that's really how frogs work, but the analogy still rings true, right? So that's what I would say.
I had like two thoughts on that. So my first one is so many times people have the exact same New Year's resolutions year over year. And if it didn't work last year, there's nothing magical from December 31st to January 1st. You're not magically this year all in one day going to be able to do it. And then my biggest thing that I will throw out here, especially since this is just the beginning of the year, is what he was saying. Everybody takes on too many things at once, but the bigger part of that, what did you subtract out of your life, out of your schedule? You have to make room. You have to have margin in order to add something in. And that's why most people's resolutions don't work, is because they don't create that margin. And then it's unsustainable.
Yeah. You can't only add so many things to your day. Mm-hmm. And I guarantee we audited our time, or at least our priorities. We're probably probably going to find some spaces where we can, that's not helpful for me hitting my goals. I'll pull that out. I just lost 5 pounds. I'll pull that one out, that 6 hours of Netflix at night and maybe replace that with a 30-minute walk. Mm-hmm. You're up 5.5 hours of like net time that you've just accrued. Yep. And you just built in another habit that is really beneficial for long-term health and body composition goals. So I love that.
Yep.
All right. Do we have one more? That was the last one.
That was it.
All right. So babe, it's impromptu. I didn't prep you for this one.
I'm not ready for this.
What is one resolution that you have for this year? Now that we just talked about all the ways you do it wrong, or we do it wrong.
So to share with everyone, mine is being more intentional every single week. Because I think we do this broad term, right? And you don't put a number to it or whatever, but making a point at least once a week to reach out to somebody, to encourage them, to ask how I can pray for them, to be a better sister in Christ. Because I think a lot of times we think about those kind of things, or you see somebody going through something about health, and do we actually like reach out?
I'm really smiling because you're the best person at that already that I know. Like literally, there's nobody better at that I know, that always reach out to people.
Miss Marlene's really good at it.
I don't know Miss Marlene, so
your mom's best friend,
Marlene. Oh, she never reaches out to me?
Well, that's because you never answer anybody. Your phone's true. Always on do not disturb.
That's my resolution.
But she doesn't have your number. So.
That's my resolution. Turn my phone off. Do not disturb.
Okay, so what is one of your resolutions this year?
So it's in the same vein. So and we had this conversation the night before New Year's, or the night before New Year's Eve. Yeah, New Year's Eve. And that is that this year is not about me. So I've lived the last, decade of my life prioritizing my goals, my ambitions, my schedule. And this year, especially stepping out into ministry, God has really put it on my heart to prioritize other people ahead of myself, namely you. So that's my priority, is when I'm at a crossroads between what I need to do and what you need to do, to take the back seat. And let you guys know how that goes.
Yep. We'll be honest and real.
All right, guys. Thank you guys for tuning in and listening. All of you, we truly do appreciate it. I would like to know what your questions are. If you are starting a new year's resolution, whether it's diet, whether it's a training program question, whether it is a peptide that you're using or considering using, whether it's, you know, TRT, whatever it is, like, please comment below. I'd love to know your questions, so that way we can answer them on the next episode of Ask a Personal Strength Coach, featuring a hot wife. All right, guys.
Bye.
Have a good night.